What's not critical thinking is when we dismiss what someone says because they have committed a crime, because they're black, or if we dismiss them because we think, we have a certain amount of wealth and they're poor, so they must be lazy. These kinds of things stop us. Prejudice stops us from having critical thinking skills. It's the most important thing. This is really what critical thinking is all about, is becoming more and more aware of your biases, your prejudices, and we all have them. It's fine to have a bias. It's fine that I'm a Protestant. It's fine that I'm a white person. It's fine that I came from a poor family that made its way up to the middle class. There's no bad way to be. What we want to do is become more and more aware of how does the fact that I'm white color who I listen to, what I think is true. How does the fact that I'm a Protestant color who I think is correct, who I listen to? How does the fact that I am educated and now am in the middle class and live in New York City, how do these things affect how I see things? That's all. That's all critical thinking really is becoming more and more aware of the specific place in which you are. And I learned that much more in my graduate education. I went to Union Theological Seminary. For the first time, I was really at a place where I was forced, I would say, to confront what it means to be white in America. The seminary tended to attract African Americans who were very conscious of race identity and identity politics, we call it nowadays, and how that affects how we read the Bible, how it affects our religious identities, and boy, was it a blessing to me. It was uncomfortable, really uncomfortable, which has to happen. I think we have to be uncomfortable in order to make progress in terms of our ability to think critically. I don't think it happens without some discomfort. So, it was really uncomfortable. I thought I was a really non-prejudiced person, and I think mostly I was. And I was lucky enough to have a friend in seminary who was black, and he challenged me. He said, well, if your parents were so open, where did they raise you? They raised you in an all-white town. And this is not to blame my parents, but he just challenged me, and I did have just, one absorbs in our society certain thoughts and feelings about racial issues. So I was forced to talk about them, and I think with a lot of white people, we're really afraid of being accused. Oh, it totally happens. Sometimes we are accused of being racist, and we're like, what? I'm not racist, and sometimes those accusations may be right, and sometimes they may be wrong. But I had 3 years in the master's program of constantly kind of having to engage in these issues. And I came out the other side so grateful, because really my eyes were really opened about what it's like to be a white person in a society that is privileges white people, And part of what happens is when you're in the privileged group is you are simply unaware of what is happening with the unprivileged group. That's the point of privilege. You don't have to think about it. And you tend to have these feelings about, well, I was able to get myself to college, and my parents were poor. So what's wrong with that person? And who's going to challenge you on it because you live in your white world? Releasing my heart and mind from the prison of unknowing my own privilege was really important to my ability to think critically. I think it can be scary to have your prejudices challenged. I don't think that will ever change because we like to know what we know. We like to know what we know. And when we find out that what we know maybe isn't so sure, it's frightening. It's frightening. It's frightening. But I'm grateful by how often I have had the experience of being grateful to have those prejudices exposed to me. This is why I feel that I have some pretty good critical thinking skills, because I'm aware of the prejudices that I have had, and I think I'm fairly aware of who I am and where I am. And be who you are. You know, if you're white, like, embrace it. If you're black, embrace it. If you're mixed, embrace it. Just be who you are. Just be aware that that's who you are. You know, and there's beauty in that. You know, it's all wonderful. It's all a gift. If you come from rich, then just know that's great. If you come from poor, then you have a wisdom, you know, that every place that a person can be gives them a kind of wisdom. You know, a rich person has a wisdom that a poor person doesn't have. There's that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you know, where he talks about his rich dad had some real wisdom that his poor dad didn't have, right? But the poor person has wisdom, and this is something I really learned in my Christian upbringing, you know, blessed are the poor. I really believe that it is a blessing to be poor, to be persecuted, to be hungry. I believe that those things are blessings because they give you a certain perspective that the power people don't have. But the power people really, to be capable of thinking clearly, the power people something has to get them to understand that as a white person, something has to happen to get the white person to understand that a black person really has something to teach you. And the rich person has to really come to understand that the poor person has something to teach you. I think that people who are in the less privileged positions, they kind of have a tendency to see both sides, because if it's the rich, and in our society, the white person, and in our society, the straight person, they tend to have the airwaves, right? So their wisdom gets communicated. So the people who are not in those status positions tend to understand, oh yeah, there's a lot of wisdom that these people have to share. But it doesn't tend to go the other way. That's what I have experienced to be true. Thanks. I hope it was reasonably succinct. It wasn't really, was it? Anyway, thanks for watching.